Hello everyone, welcome to Wrestling Royalty. I am of course Andy, and I'm here on a Friday night as always. And tonight we are going to be talking about the women's roster in WWE and basically how stacked that roster is right now. I am hopefully going to be joined at some point tonight by Sam over from Gimme a Hull. Yeah, I appreciate anyone who's come across from Gimme a Hull. Yeah, I believe that Dan has been doing an unboxing over on Gimme a Hull Yeah channel, so I hope you've managed to check that out. And I hope you're having a great Friday night. As I say, we will be going through the women's roster, and we're going to be talking about the past, the present, and the future. And I'm really keen to hear your comments. So let me know what you think of the women's roster in WWE. Let me know your favorites. Let me know some of the favorite matches. And a lot of what spurred this on is because of that fantastic match we saw at Survivor Series War Games. The War Games match kicked things off, really set the tone of the night as well. I thought it was fantastic. So we're going to go through a few of the superstars. And I just really want to hear your thoughts. So let me know before we go any further. You know what time it is. It's that time for that intro. As I say, I hope you're having a lovely Friday evening, or if you're watching this at a different time, you're watching this at a different place, and I hope you're having a wonderful time wherever in the world you are seeing this. So as I mentioned at the top, and you can see by the title, tonight and wherever, we're going to be talking about the women's roster in WWE. I'm shortly going to be joined by Sam Smith from Gimme a Hull Yeah, who are good friends of this channel, vice versa. But I'd say, please let me know in the comments how your thoughts on the women's roster. So what I'm going to do is just going to pull up a couple of slides so you don't have to just look at my face all night. But let me know if you're in. Say hello. Don't be shy. Make sure you give me a comment and let me know you're watching. Let me know what you're up to as well this weekend. If you're watching this in the future, feel free to comment. Always love to see comments who people who have watched further down the line. Because let's face it, the women's roster right now is probably going to roll on for quite a while. We've got people who are bona fide future Hall of Famers. We've got people who are the current face of the brand and the company, and then we've got a plethora of talent coming through from NXT and some of the younger ones that are already on the main roster as well. So I did promise Sam will be joining us. He had a bit of a break last week. He was getting pampered over with his missus as well, so he should be nice and relaxed and rested, ready to go. And you are going to be able to see him in about 3 seconds when I bring him in. And make sure that you tune into his SmackDown stream with not just the return of Sam Smith, but the return of Randy Orton as well. So check out Gimme a Hull Yeah, and let's bring him in.
Hello. Oh, wow, this feels different. I haven't done this for 2 weeks. Oh, there we go. Yeah, sorry I'm a little bit late. Now was the time that my WhatsApp decided it was going to die, so I couldn't get the link on my Mac, but I am here in the end.
No, you're good, man. You're good. It's you made a fashionably late entrance, and you look all the better for it as well, mate. So how was your week away?
It was lovely. It was only a few days away. In truth, we just went to the what's it called? I've forgotten what it's bloody called. The Swan at Newby Bridge in Cumbria. It's like basically a spa and a hotel. We had a couple of nights there. Ate some food. Had some massages, went in the spa, drank way more Prosecco than we should have done. Yeah, and now we're quite chilled out. We come back and it's bloody freezing. It's like -4 out there. I put my head out there before, nearly froze off like the day after tomorrow. Anyway, but we're good. But I'm good.
Yeah, so for anyone in the UK, you might be experiencing it as well. We do have a bit of snow kicking around. So if you do have some snow, keep yourself warm. And if you're from further afield, enjoy the warm weather while you have it. But really good to see you, and welcome back, mate. It's we had Dan in last week, which was a nice treat. And I believe Dan's been plugging the hell out of this stream and also the SmackDown stream when he was doing his unboxing. So
yes,
if you haven't checked it out after this, the little gap in between this and Sam's stream, go check out Dan's, because we like to plug each other's stuff. And I'm sure you would be interested to see what comes out of his box, as it were.
He gets a lot of good stuff, Dan. I'm kind of jealous of him having that particular gimmick, because he gets all that cool, I should say free, It's not free, but you get all that good stuff. Oh no, I'm yawning. I'm tired. I've been to the pub tonight as well, so I'm a little bit. Woo. But,
yeah, you might see I'm not wearing a t-shirt or a hoodie, which I normally would do. I'm actually wearing a shirt because I have been out to my work Christmas party and I didn't want to let the people down. So I wanted to jump back in. So I left early. Bullet Club, very festive Bullet Club as well.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, I like this. I thought I don't normally start celebrating Christmas or anything like that until a few weeks into December. But I thought I'm gonna put this on and go to the pub and get some weird looks, which is exactly what happened.
Fair enough. You do you, mate. And it's nice to see your hat back on. I saw some photos of Sam without his hat, and it feels a bit weird. It's like seeing Homer on The Simpsons without like a beard. You just know something's not quite right. But as he's with his missus on a nice romantic weekend, it would have been a bit weird. So fair play.
I wasn't allowed to wear it on my wedding day either, but I wasn't a member of the podcast at that point. However, I did manage to get Happy Rusev Day into my wedding speech to what only 2 people understood, but it was all right.
That's aged very well, I would guess as well.
Yeah, well, at the time it was hot, you know. At the time it was, but I still think it could have been a big deal, and they could have gone with it. But anyway,
yeah. So anyway, as I say, we are here tonight not just to talk about failed and past gimmicks and Gimme Ho Yeah hats, although they do look very fetching. You can buy yourself one. Go check out the information on Gimme Ho Yeah. And before we go any further, make sure you hit that subscribe button just below if you're watching on YouTube, or head over to YouTube and follow me and subscribe and like all that good jazz as well. But we are here tonight to talk about the women's roster. And the reason why I want to talk about it was because each week I try and think of the big talking point. And we already covered CM Punk, and Sam has his opinions on CM Punk. I thought it's best not to poke that bear. So instead, we'll talk about what was inspired by that first match last weekend on the War Games Survivor Series War Games, which I thought was, in my opinion, the best match of the night. It got things off to a great start. I thought they told some great stories throughout. And the presentation of it was fantastic. So I thought this week, CM Punk, I'm sure other channels will be covering it ad nauseum. You'll hear a lot more about it in the coming weeks, but I thought it'd be best to shine a light on something that maybe got overshadowed, and I don't think it deserved it because it was a fantastic match. And the women's roster is killing it right now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to break it down a little bit, and we'll talk about let's say the past, the present, and the future. When I say past, I kind of mean in terms of the ones who have been around for a little while, and who we think is going to go into the Hall of Fame in the future, and that kind of thing. And then we'll talk about the present, so who's the current face and on the cusp of that, all the way through to the future, where we'll try and hopefully introduce a couple of NXT people that you might not have heard of. If you have heard of, I'd also love to hear them in the comments. Let us know who you look forward to seeing joining the main roster in the future, who you enjoying now on the main roster as well. So first question, I'm going to open it with Sam because I've been talking for a little while there, is what do you make of the WWE women's roster? I asked the question, is this the best women's roster in WWE history? I'll start with the big one. Yes or no, best women's roster in the company's history?
Yes. There you go. I was winding you up. I wasn't ever going to give you just a one-word answer, was I? Just wanted to see what you'd do. I just wanted to leave that in the air for a minute. Also, quickly, by the way, on the CM Punk stuff, I am going to be sharing all my views on the CM Punk situation over on the SmackDown stream because I can't not. I am going to have to say something, but this isn't the place for it. I just want people to know if they want to hear me talk about that, it's going to happen tonight.
Well, that I can guarantee that as explosive viewing. To make sure you tune in to Gimme Ho Yeah. 1 a.m. streaming, so join maybe about 10 minutes before Sam gets himself set up. I'm sure Sam has a lot to say on that subject because there's a few things I'm sure he wants to get off his chest, and it would be just great viewing because I know he'll try and be a bit magnanimous, but he also has some strong opinions. So tune in to Gimme Ho Yeah just before 1 o'clock.
It also might surprise you what I say, even especially you and the boys who know me well in that regard and know my views. But yeah, is this the best women's division of all time? Yes, of course it is. And I'll tell you, and it has been, like right now, it's especially good, but it's been very good for a while now because we go back in time. We had the women of the Attitude Era who were the Trailblazers, which WWE never shuts up about. Then we had, it kind of went into the Divas era, or what I like to call it, the Dolly Bird era. This is where and this is a fact, people were picked out of underwear catalogs and things like that. And some of them went on to be big stars, and some of them were absolutely should have been given a job. But at the same time, then we have the women's revolution. That's when things start changing for the better. Now, some people might disagree with that, depending on where you stand with women's wrestling. I'm a big fan of it, so everyone can shut up. But right now, 100%. Ever since we moved on from, and I have a soft spot for the Bellas. I think they actually are good fun, and I think they've given me a lot of entertainment. My wife's a big fan, but we're in this era now of the legit female pro wrestler. They hire the occasional cheerleader, model, or whatever. Yeah, but sometimes it's because they make great characters, and sometimes that in wrestling that can be enough. We don't need everybody to be Io Sky, for example, or Charlotte Flair, who's just a lot of people don't like Charlotte Flair, but she is the full package. Ric Flair and Charlotte as a heel is thrown around genetically superior. I won't go that far, but it's sometimes hard to find another term. Like, she is just built, made, genetically trained, groomed, whatever you want to do. She is what a female pro wrestler grown in a lab would look like, is Charlotte. But then we got Becky Lynch, who was never meant to be the man. She was meant to just be a foil for Charlotte and get crushed on the road to Charlotte's greatness, and things flipped around because of course they did. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, it absolutely is, because we've never seen Rhea Ripley's like before. I've never been. Don't get me wrong. I love Bianca Belair. I think she's fantastic. I got very bored of her title reign. I want her to turn heel and be the ultra bitch we all know she's excellent at being. But yeah, when you look at the talent and the match quality and even the personalities, in my opinion, the women's division is better now than it's ever been. And I do think it's always been on an upward trajectory, which we can't say about the men's division. That has kind of peaked and troughed, where I'm hoping to see how much better it gets. I'd like to throw a shout out as well, while we're discussing women's wrestling, to the competition, to AEW. They've had some very, very well documented issues with their women's division, but I think they're turning it around, especially after that last pay-per-view. They really started turning some cool stuff around. And a shout out to TNA while I'm here as well. That I actually think their women's roster is the best in the Western world. I really do. WWE's is great, but sorry, Impact's knockout division just wins. And to be fair to TNA, they were doing that stuff way before WWE and AEW adapted it. Well, AEW was still in the Dolly Bird Diva era. TNA was, showing us what women's wrestling could be. But coming back to WWE, 100%. I was never going to give you just a one-word answer. It's just phenomenal right now. And that War Games match, I was more interested in that than the men's one, mainly because of the tension between Io and Bayley, which is absolutely palpable. And Dan's here. We could bring him on if you want, Andy, unless he's sat in your boxes by now, Dan.
I've said that Dan is more than welcome to join. He has the link. I've sent it separately, so if he wants to join in and give us it, then he's absolutely welcome to. There's no pressure, but it's always good to have Dan on the show. So feel free, if you want to join, Dan, you're more than welcome to. But he did chuck us a comment across there, which was, if you look at Monday Night Raw over the past few weeks, there's been 25 plus women seen on each week. They're getting women on a lot now than a year ago. And that's it's a great point, because it's not just the single division as well. With the tag team division is getting a bit of love with having a character like Chelsea Green and Piper Niven on as the kind of face of that. And maybe the tag belts aren't kind of being showcased as much as everything else, but it's nice to have them around and get a little bit of exposure, because you can bring in more people, and I think they've got a good chance of making a go of them, probably the best chance they've had because of how deep the roster is. But yeah, I do agree. I think you've had the sort of peaks and troughs in terms of the quality so far of women's wrestling, and it has since kind of started to just go on this up and up and up. And it's very difficult to argue that we're not seeing, well, how much further can it go up? Because right now it just feels like the roster is stacked, and there's just different characters, there's different sort of levels of ability, and it's nice to see that they're blending in some that are more sort of like not diva-ish, but around that, maybe as you say, the sort of Dolly Bird style, but they can wrestle as well. So they've got that kind of like, yes, I might act like this, sort of like, and when I say that, I mean I'm referring to like Tiffany Stratton more than anyone. Because
she's brilliant. She's like Charlotte. She's she's once in a generation. Because I think that's sorry, man. I know I jumped in there, but it's like just because somebody is stunningly beautiful doesn't mean they can't go. Like look at me, for example. But yeah, it's look, Tiffany Stratton looks $1 million, but I loved their title reign. I was devastated when it came to an end. Like, don't get me wrong, Becky Lynch is Becky Lynch, but I really wanted to see Tiffany Stratton go on a bit of a tear. I wanted to get that title back and defend it all the way to Mania, but that's just me. But I feel like they've hot-shotted that belt a little bit too much in the past year. But anyway,
we'll jump into NXT and the kind of what they're doing over on NXT, because similar to what Dan's saying there's been weeks where it's almost been just completely the women's roster on NXT, and then they drip feed a couple of men's matches in. But it's very noticeable that Shawn Michaels seems to be. I don't know if it's something that he's discussed with Triple H, or it's just something that's kind of happened organically, but they very much seem to be having a lot of women feature on NXT and on the main roster. And even after we had that, I guess it felt like a bit of a crescendo by having the main event of WrestleMania 35 was the women's main event, and it felt like, yes, they've got to the top, and like it's all good things from here. And then it seemed to fizzle out a little bit. We didn't get too much from there. And as good as this main roster is at the moment, and it's amazing, do you foresee where the next WrestleMania main event could come from?
I think there's a few people waiting in the wings for true greatness. Now, like Bayley's fantastic, but you could argue Bayley's never the biggest moment in Bayley's career was her feud with Sasha Banks back in NXT. Now, Bayley isn't one of those wrestlers, superstars who went to the main roster and then just kind of petered out like a lot of them have. Bayley's been awesome on the main roster, tons of moments, be it Mania or wherever else, but that's still a definitive one. So I kind of like the idea of, well, personally, I think Bayley and Io are going to be facing each other at Mania. I think the seeds are being planted as we speak, and they'll water them around the Rumble. But yeah, so that's really got my interest, and that's had my interest ever since Money at the Bank. Ever since Damage Control started fracturing, and now it's almost like Io is building her own army with Asuka and with Kairi Sane, who have both had real beef with Bayley in the past.
Yeah.
So I'm loving this story because it's like the Judgment Day where, do you remember with the Bloodline when we knew it was going to implode? It was a matter of time, and we were just waiting. That's now happening with Damage Control. Like it's too big to contain now. And that's one of the things that's got me the most excited in WWE at the moment, because I feel like the Bloodline and the Judgment Day stuff has kind of just petered off a little bit. I'm sure they'll both get going again, but right now this is the stable to watch, 100%.
Well, let me bring in Dan, who's going to join us as well, and I'll ask him the same question. Good evening, Dan. How's it going?
How are you doing? Thanks for having me again.
There's me inviting people onto Andy's podcast, Dan.
I sent Dan a message earlier today and said, if he wants to come on, here's the link. He's more than welcome to. And he said, I'm doing an unboxing at 10. I'll plug and then I'll also plug the stuff for Sam's stream on SmackDown. I said, well, if you want to join, you're more than welcome. He's a great guest to have on. And I get the best of both worlds, get you both. So, Dan, I'm sure you were listening in the background there, but the question I asked was about, in WrestleMania 35, the women had the main event. Can you foresee them getting the main event again? And more specifically, who could you see getting that main event?
100%. I think the way that Triple H has booked the women previously, he's got a lot of faith in them. He had a lot of faith in them in NXT. He was doing the Bailey and Sasha match. It was a groundbreaking match. One, for the time itself, and two, for the division of a development brand. So being able to showcase a match at that level, and the whole wrestling industry stood up and took note of how good the match was. And since then, the women's division in WWE, I think, it's had its peaks and troughs, but over the past couple of months, probably, I would say, SummerSlam last year, where Damage Control actually first showed up. It was one of the first times that we saw a proper, well thought out faction with people in there, and it's been really built. So I probably would say within the next 5 years, guaranteed, maybe WrestleMania 42, 43, something like that. I know WWE will probably want someone like Jade Cargill in there because of the look, but depends how she goes in the development of character work, the WWE style of working, and if they can find a good feud for her. But you can always put Charlotte Flair in there. You can probably put Becky Lynch in there, and you're going to have a solid match, no matter who you put in there with them.
Two takes, boys. I'm just going to go and put my heater on. Sorry, Dan. I was just waiting for a gap. I was just going to put my heater on.
No, you're okay. I was just going to say, you've just flagged up and you've had Tiffany Stratton on there, which is someone that I think could be that person. And you could have the Rhea Ripley as well. And I think the two looks, the sort of blonde bombshell versus the grunge goth look, that's a great look to play off as a showcase piece. And I think Tiffany Stratton, as you said a few minutes ago, they seem to have dropped the ball with her a little bit, taking the title off her. You could have had her go over Becky Lynch, and that would have really solidified her as this next main event level caliber female performer for me.
Yeah, it was an interesting decision, and presumably it was to give a little bit of momentum in different respects, to say, like, right, Tiffany's done really well, and I think it's not exclusive to Tiffany and the women on the NXT roster, because there's a big argument to say, why is Bron Breakker still down there? Why is Carmelo Hayes still down there? Because they've kind of done everything that they can do, and they're just sat ready to kind of go. And it feels like you've got to be careful, because you can keep them sort of bubbling away, but are you diminishing the kind of stardom that they already have on NXT? And then the NXT fans will be like, get them on the main roster and I'll support them there. But what you're doing at the moment is potentially diminishing the impact they'd have if they moved them when they were really hot. Because back in the day, you'd get someone like Nakamura will drop the title, next night is on Raw. Asuka didn't even drop the title. She went with the title to Raw, and then on the next NXT went, well, no one can beat me, so I'm just going to have to drop the title. And it's just like, cool, that feeds into her persona on the main roster. Maybe they're trying to do something with Tiffany Stratton where they were like, right, she's been built up, she's ready to go when they want to pull the trigger on her. Now we need her to kind of like help the rest of the roster get up to her level. But it feels convoluted, and it feels a bit unfair on her because she's just kind of kicking her heels. But I know she's in the upcoming NXT. Is it Deadline? Is it Deadline? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. She'll be in the Rumble as well. I mean, if you're sticking anyone from NXT in the Rumble, it's her, isn't it? You want to get her on a big stage, not just because of the look, which, let's be honest, she looks $1 million, but you want to get her on. You want to see on the Rumble for people to take notice, because you're going to get some eyes on NXT. And again, not just because of how she looks, but because of how she performs. She is the whole package. So, the people who watch it just to perv are going to enjoy it, and the people who watch it because they like good wrestling are going to enjoy it as well. So,
yeah, absolutely. But it's interesting. Like, we will go into NXT. So, what my next question is, before we go into the kind of the future side of things, I really want to hear your guys' thoughts on who out of the let's say we'll probably be in agreement. One of the four horsewomen is going to be in, at least one of the four is going to go into the Hall of Fame. Which one do you foresee going in first?
Sam?
I think all of them are going in eventually. I think Sasha will make her way back at some point. I think this whole Mercedes Moné thing is her proving a point. It's her doing her CM Punk. It's her doing what so many other people have done, became a big star, go away and learn a new hold, is what they say, isn't it? And she's gone and learned a few holds, and one day she'll be back, and it'll be a massive deal when she is. But I think Charlotte's probably going in first, not just because she's perhaps the most successful out of all four of them, but her dad's Ric Flair. Her dad will induct her if he's still with us, which I very much hope he is when that day comes. Or if it isn't Rick, it'll be somebody else. Becky's already a shoo-in. She'll be going in at some point. And I think Bailey's also a shoo-in. I think Sasha needs to return for that to happen. But for the other three are a total shoo-in. But my money's on Charlotte going in first.
Yeah, I can't disagree with it, but I do think that if you are going to induct all four of them into the Hall of Fame, I would start off with the Four Horsewomen, because the Four Horsewomen was the faction in a way, and it wasn't an official faction, but it was the Four Horsewomen as a combined unit that technically started the change of the industry. So if you put one of them in before the others, it could create a bit of resentment between them. And I think putting them all in together and say, we want to give back to you, putting you in together because you changed the industry. And then put them in individually, whether it is Charlotte before anyone else because of the legacy that she's got, whether it's Becky because she headlines another WrestleMania or two with someone else, whether it's Bailey because she smashes everything that she touches out the park, or whether it's Sasha because she comes back, she has a great run and then decides to retire early. You never know. But I think if they are going to induct all four of them, it's got to be together first and then individually afterwards.
One thing I'll say is, the other day I was speaking to a young girl who's training to be a wrestler, and I wrote this in the article that I covered it. And when I said to her, "Who are the ones that inspire you the most?" she gave me three names. One was Becky, one was Charlotte, and the other was Ronda Rousey. And when I said why, she said because they main evented WrestleMania, and she goes, and to me that's the most important thing. They showed that women can be main eventers. So, like, the Four Horsewomen is like, I think people like the three of us love that idea and appreciate that as an unofficial stable. But I think to the casual fan and the people who might not have gone through watching NXT, they might be looking at people like Ronda in that same light. Despite Ronda's run not being amazingly successful, there is that one moment. So, and also here's the thing with careers. Like, yes, I know they can all just go in individually at different times, but it's hard to know where each of them is gonna be in their career when that day comes. You know what I mean? Like, some of them might still be active, some of them might have fallen foul of the company because it happens. So, I'd love that idea to be true, to come true. But if they were to do it, I think they would need to unify the four as an official stable and have them then go up against a heel stable. Like, back in the day, I was obsessed with the idea of the Four Horsewomen of NXT going up against the Four Horsewomen of UFC. But only one of them is now still with the company, kicking ass, but still with the three of them are gone. Two of them one's in Ring of Honor, one's in AEW, and the other is, well, God knows where. So I always thought that was a WrestleMania match waiting to happen, but sadly, it didn't. Maybe it still could one day, but I don't know. I feel like that ship might have sailed, but I think that would have been the definitive moment for that stable, and we sadly never got it. Doesn't mean they still can't do it, though.
It definitely looked like that was what they were aiming for at one point, but I think they quickly realised in NXT that Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke needed a little bit of polishing. I never thought they were that bad in NXT. They kind of had a little bit of a run, but they never really got going too much. I think at one point one was injured and one wasn't, and then they kind of like just ran out of steam completely. and then Ronda was doing her thing on the main roster. Shayna was doing well as well. So it definitely felt like that was the way things were going. But I just wonder if they're going to do it. Maybe they do a special edition of the Hall of Fame where they're the 4 that go in, and they split it even between them. So then you kind of have the 4 horsewomen, but you don't necessarily have to have it as a named thing, because, as you say, to the casual viewer, they don't know what that is because it's never really been a thing. Yes, they've kind of done that, but that's as far as it's ever gone. So they could do that, and it would be nice if when they do that, they give like one in memoriam. Maybe that's the year that they could put China in on her own and finally like give what everyone knows should happen. Put that in as well. Yeah. I'm going to read out just a few names here, and this is the current roster that they have on Raw and SmackDown. So you've got Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Charlotte, Becky Lynch, Bayley, Io Sky, Dakota Kai, Asuka, Kairi Sane, Shotzi, Shayna Baszler, Candice LeRae, Chelsea Green, Piper Niven, Maxine Dupree, Ivy Nile, Natalya. That's just on Raw and SmackDown. Like, to me, that's insane. And then you add in all the ones that are kind of coming up. And there's loads I've missed off there, by the way, as well.
Yeah.
My next question would be, a fair few years ago now, we had Evolution. There's always been a bit of noise whether there should be another Evolution Premium Live event. Is now the time to pull the trigger on that, or is it now surpassed that to say actually the women's roster deserves more time on all the Premium Live events, or should they be given an Evolution 2 because they deserve it? So Dan, I'll start with you.
I think the amount of people you've got on the roster at the minute, I think an Evolution 2 would be a great start for them. Just give them one night, give them all the plaudits they need, give them the time they need for their individual matches, whether it's 2 or 3 tag matches to get as many women on the card as possible, women's battle royal, stuff like that. But you've got enough women to near enough do a 50-50 split on a regular Premium Live event to be able to fill a full show. We have Monday Night Raw that's 3 hours. We had Survivor Series, which was 3 and a bit hours, almost 4 hours. And to me, I know some people will probably kill me for it, but a Premium Live event should be longer than your longest weekly show.
Yeah, agreed.
If you have a 3 hour Monday Night Raw, your Premium Live event should feel special and it should draw people in. So I reckon a 4 hour show should be more than suitable for a Premium Live event on a weekend. More people are going to be able to watch it. And I think doing a 4 hour pay-per-view full of women is easy enough for WWE. They can tell that story, but you also want to put them in prominent positions on your other Premium Live events. Just going back to Sam's point with the person that he spoke to a few days ago, I was quite surprised Bianca Belair wasn't on there because she headlined night 1 of WrestleMania 35, 37.
I said that to her.
Sasha Banks, yeah.
Her response was she didn't do it first. That was the first thing was really important to Crystal was her name.
So for Crystal, she's obviously got that in her mind and she's already thought of that backup, which I think was great. But you have women headline any pay-per-view. That should always be your goal, whether you did it first or not for me.
Yeah.
The women are being given that headline slot, whether it's Bianca and Sasha, whether it's Charlotte and Tiffany in the future, whether it's Jade Cargill and someone that we've not seen in WWE yet. Headlining a pay-per-view as a female should be the ultimate goal, whether it was done first, whether it's been done 10 times by the same person for me. And I think that, yeah, we will see that at some point.
I think for me... Oh, sorry, Andy, were you jumping in?
I was going to throw it over to you, so you
sorry, yeah. Okay, well, I think it's part of a wider conversation, actually. Because Because if we think back to Evolution when it happened, it was almost a bit of and it was an awesome pay-per-view. I enjoyed the hell out of it. And I loved how they had the Ronda Rousey era versus the Dolly Bird era with Nikki Bella versus Rousey. I thought that was a really smart way of doing it. Like, it would have been better in longevity if it had been somebody like Becky Lynch, but she was doing her own thing. But anyway, so it was almost a consolation prize for the dudes getting a men-only sausage party pay-per-view on the Saudi Arabia shows at the time. If we remember, like, women weren't allowed to compete, then they had to compete in their PJs. Now there's been some kind of, now they have the cool-looking bodysuits, which I actually think are great. But that was it. That's what it was. So they did that to give their women their own showcase, because the blokes were getting, 2 extra pay-per-views a year where women weren't allowed to perform on. So that was always my interpretation of Evolution. So if they were to do another Evolution, I wouldn't be against it. I'd watch it. I'd probably enjoy it. But then again, if they were to do, I can't believe I'm saying this, but then if they were going to do, if they did a dudes only pay-per-view again, they'd be absolutely lambasted for it. And I think they know that. So the wider conversation I was alluding to was, at what point does it make sense for WWE to, if they were to do some kind of brand split, to have an all-female WWE brand, which is just, almost like Shine, for example, or Shimmer, but in WWE. Shine being part of WWN, which, like Evolve, was used as a filter system for NXT for so long. So we know they've experimented with it and they've thought about it. Like, for me, I'd be against it. I'm actually happy with things as they are, with women and men's matches on the pay-per-views. I personally don't think we need an Evolution 2, and even calling it Evolution was a bit on the bloody nose. Yeah, we get it. It's, you're not just booking swimwear models anymore. But I'd definitely watch a show that was all women's wrestling. But for me, that would only make sense for them to do a pay-per-view. It's like, an all-women's pay-per-view if it was like an all-women's brand. Because now that the Saudi Arabia matches are featuring women and men, I think an Evolution 2 is surplus to requirements. And if they were to do it, I think a lot of the incels of the world would be like, oh, well, where's the men-only ones? And I'm just anticipating that backlash. However, I will counter my own point by saying I'd be well up for the Mae Young Classic coming back. I know they've just done something on NXT that was kind of the equivalent, and the Mae Young name isn't quite as cozy as it was a few years ago. But I'd be up for that and make a big deal out of it. Make it its own show on the network or on Peacock. Fair enough, including it in NXT like they did, but the Mae Young Classic felt like a big deal. And the people who were a lot of the people who've gone on from that, Rhea Ripley, Kairi Sane, Bianca Belair, a lot of them have become massive stars. So that is what I'd want to see more than an Evolution 2. Just make the Mae Young Classic an annual thing, and while we're at it, maybe do another Cruiserweight Classic or do something for the dudes.
Yeah, it's a really weird one, because I whenever I've kind of discussed it with people will have fond memories of, when they used to do King of the Ring and it was his own pay-per-view, and they used to have the actual tournament pretty much happen. They'd have a couple of preliminary rounds on Raw or SmackDown, but then you'd get the quarters, the semis, and the final would all be on King of the Ring. You'd chuck in a couple of the actual storylines as well. People love that. People love the Cruiserweight. People love Mae Young. People love the UK tournament. It's really confusing why they don't do more. There must be a logistical reason why they don't want to do it. But for me,
there was a time where they did hundreds, wasn't there?
Yeah, they kind of just seem to be like banging them out. And then you add in stuff like the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. Personally, like, I'm not against seeing the Evolution 2, but I think there is an argument to say it has become surplus to requirements because we've moved on and they can now feature everywhere in the world, which is great and should be celebrated. But I personally think that then there's a need to build up, and they're doing it now, the tag team roster, and shine a light more on the tag team side of things, because for me, that's a division that doesn't get enough love, and I would much rather see the Dusty Rhodes thing become an actual tag team tournament, again, a special on the network. And I don't know if that's more difficult because of how they are with Peacock or anything like that, But yeah, I am full agreement. I think they should do more tournaments that are separate to Monday Night Raw or SmackDown or the PLEs as well. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. But interesting that we had one that kind of does, it would be interested in the evolution side of things, and one that would say actually maybe not. So always cool to see. So present tense, our two champions, Io Sky, or Io Shirai, as she used to be called, and Rhea Ripley, our champions on the main roster. Are they the two faces of the women's division right now, or is there an argument to say someone else still is? What are your thoughts on who's kind of carrying that flag right now? Sam spoke for a little while, so we'll chuck it over for Danny.
Sam always speaks for a little while.
That's my gimmick.
I've got a bit. I'll let him go, but I'll let you get your side in first.
Yeah, I think you've got two of the top performers on each brand with a title, which is it's one of the best stats that you can have. I think there might sometimes be another performer that might be better holding the title. For me, I think you could put the title on Becky Lynch and it wouldn't feel out of place. You could then leave Rhea to do her own thing with the Judgment Day and have that implode or whatever you want to do going forward with that. She doesn't need the title for that. I know it's part of the belt collector stable gimmick that they're doing with Dom having the NXT North American and the Balor and Priest having the tag titles. It's a good aesthetic. It's a good look for the company, having won all of the title belts around a certain group of individuals that are close knit. But I think if you then start playing with the Money in the Bank title briefcase, that can then sometimes cause too many belts. So I think if you took the women's title off of Rhea, you could put it onto someone and they could help build the division around them with separate storylines.
Yeah.
Rather than keep it in that sort of small knit. For SmackDown, I think having Io with the title in the stable makes sense because no one else in the stable has got that title picture sort of there. And I just think that it's building and building to a damage control implosion, which I think is going to make every single one of them a main event star on their own brand or whether they move over to SmackDown. So I don't know, but I keep thinking of Kairi Sane winning the Women's Rumble because then you could have that pushed from January until Mania, and you could do the tease of no, I'm going to go challenge Rhea. I'm going to challenge Rhea, and then a couple of weeks before WrestleMania itself, then you get that switch. You get that massive heel turn. I think Io Sky is a massive babyface going against Kairi Sane as the massive heel. I think it's just a great long-term storytelling that you can have all the way from now until WrestleMania with just them two. So at the minute, I think, yeah, having the title on Io makes perfect sense. I think Rhea should probably drop the title to someone maybe that you might want to build a little bit, or put it on Becky so she can help elevate someone and then drop the title to them at WrestleMania.
Ooh, see, I'm going to go another way. See, I've been of the view that ever since Money at the Bank, and I'm going to say it again, they're sick of me hearing me say it on SmackDown, but where we saw we saw Io literally and figuratively walk over Bayley to get the briefcase. And I remember thinking, my God, like the metaphor there, Bayley being the leader of their stable, surely now Bayley is eventually going to turn on Io. And I don't know if they just forgot to do it or if they decided to go another way. But I think now the route it's going to take is the Kabuki Sky Pirates. See what I did there?
Yes.
Are going to maybe inch out Bayley. And I think it might be Bayley who wins the Royal Rumble. And she's the one who perhaps turns face when they all turn on her. I don't know what's going to happen with Dakota. I'm not so sure there. Maybe Dakota will also get kicked out or whatever, or maybe.
We talked about this the other week, and I said I think it makes sense for Dakota to become the mouthpiece for
the Kabuki Sky Pirates, which I am with.
Purely because like Dakota, I don't know how long she's got left on her kind of road to recovery, but she's also very good at the sort of, she's believable that she's translating what they're saying. And she actually is pretty decent on the mic. She's very solid on the mic, and she can kind of hang around and Bailey be like, "Are you not coming with me?" sort of thing, and it gives a little bit more conflict between it. And even then, you could actually have it be that Dakota's the one who's been masterminding it all, because she could then be like, actually, like she could
love it,
fake that she's going to join her, and then just have the rest of them absolutely going on her. And it'll be a cool moment for Dakota, because I think she's great, and I think she needs a little bit more kind of character to get her over with the crowd, and making her the kind of one within the group that was actually like masterminding it all would be a bit of a twist.
Yeah, I did enjoy that really awkward segment where Bailey was crowing away, and the three Japanese women were kind of just looking at Bailey, looking her up and down. Then they were talking and being enthusiastic, and Bailey kept on misunderstanding, and Dakota was like, "Oh, no, oh, Bailey, oh, honey, no, what they said was this." Like,
she said one of the people in the ring shouldn't be here, or
not a member of Damage Control.
That's it. Yeah.
I love the idea. Like, they're probably not going to go with the Kabuki Sky Pirates. They're probably just going to stick with Damage Control. That's what I'd do. But until they do that, I'm going with that name to refer to the that collective. But I love the idea of Bailey being the one who's ostracized, because they were meant to be turning at, like, it felt like they were going to turn Io face, but they've never quite pulled the trigger on that. And me and Misfit were talking about it. Misfit was like, Io's totally a face. I was like, no, mate, she's really not. She's beating people up backstage. That's not what faces do. She's still a heel, very much so. And the person now, like, Bailey's got absolutely no sympathy, but I think they're going to do what they've done with MJF and Adam Cole, where they're getting beaten up backstage, and because they've offended so many people in their careers, no one comes to help. Like the other day, Adam Cole was calling Bullet Club scum, and it was like, whoa, sweet child of mine. Let's just go back a couple of years. But I have to say, with Bailey, Damage Control have acted like such pricks backstage that no one's going to help Bailey, which actually makes her a little bit of a Stone Cold Steve Austin when it's all said and done. And she can fight from underneath, and she can then win the love of the crowd and win the respect of her peers. And that Royal Rumble in her back pocket, that will start making the crack show with Io. And that's what I'd like to see. But because I don't think, as much as I love the idea, Dan, of a WrestleMania main event between Io and Kairi Sane, oh my God, I do. I think WWE are going to keep them together as a stable for a while before they start before they break that up. You know what I mean? I think they've brought these three together to market them as a trio. Something they've wanted to do for a while now, and they've had Asuka with Kairi, they've had Kairi with Io. They've never had the three of them together until now, so I think they're going to capitalize on that because it's so marketable.
Absolutely, but I guess for me, going back to the sort of original point of the kind of present, it's interesting that we can talk for quite a length about this storyline. When there's a lot of people who would probably argue that Rhea Ripley is the dominant face of the women's division at the moment. And then probably, as Dan said, you've got Becky Lynch, who never seems to be too far away, in the sense of like people will kind of always respond to her. She still gets like pops. I look at the way when she was introduced as the final member, like people were eating that up as well. It never seems to go away. And it would be cool to give Bailey that moment as well. I think she's, from going from that hugger persona, she wasn't scared to switch it up and become that kind of Karen character. Now she's evolved that Karen character to be, I don't know, almost like a desperate leader who thinks she's in charge but doesn't see the sort of wood for the trees that, that
the writing is on the wall. Yeah,
not really in charge, and everyone else knows it, but she doesn't. So there's that kind of delusion side that she's added, which is really cool. So she constantly evolves her character. And again, I would like to see her rewarded for that. And a Royal Rumble win is a great shout to set up something against EO if she's kicked out before then. Because let's face it, we're in a bit of a desolate place when it comes to PLEs now, because we don't get anything to the back end of January. They've got plenty of time to tell stories, and that's what it's about. So I think they've got a great chance to sow that seed moving forward. So
I just love, like, just to quote you there, I'd love for them to quote Batman and do the whole Bailey, like, I'm in charge. And I always be like, do you feel in charge? So I always Bane, of course, in this situation. But I think that, like, that is begging to be done. A moment like that where I always like, do you feel like you're still the leader, Bailey? And then for that just to sink in with Bailey, like, it's over. I'd love that. That'd be great TV.
See, that's for me, rather than it be EO who delivers that line, I think it would work so much better. Where Dakota would be able to like really kind of like twist the knife at that point.
Yeah.
Say get them. So yeah, I'd love to see it. We're going to talk about the future now, and let's start with who you can see on the right hand side here. We're going to talk a little bit about NXT, and the current NXT champion is Lyra Valkyrie, who won the belt from Becky Lynch. Keen to hear your guys' opinions on Lyra, because I'm not the biggest fan. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, in the sense of she's a champion, but that she's still quite green.
I agree.
What are your thoughts in just in the kind of like headlines, I guess, of what you think of Lyra and where her future lies?
Do you want to go first, Dan?
Yeah, otherwise I won't go a word in edgeways. I think since I've seen her sort of go into the Becky storyline, sorry. I think I've been impressed with the match that she put on with Becky. I thought it was good. I thought Becky really did sell for her, but it just still feels, I think, a little bit too early for her. There's a lot of pressure on her now to live up to that reputation, to live up to that moniker that she's got. The one thing that I always keep thinking about is WWE, are they just trying to live and squeeze as much juice out of the Taya Valkyrie name by having it so close to that name?
I thought that. I did think that, when they got rid of Frankie Monet, which was her name, and then her name is suspiciously similar, and it's never quite, and it's also awkward. Yeah. It's also a little bit more Valkyria. Are you serious? Yeah. It's not quite Wesley. We won't relitigate that. but it's a bit like, it's like you'd love to be Taya Valkyrie, but you can't because it's taken. So you're going to go with Lyra Valkyria, which is like it's back in the day where TNA would repackage something and make it a bit more daft. It's almost a little bit like WWE or TNA in this instance. No disrespect to TNA, it was just back in the day. They would flip a few vowels around. So yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think that's a problem for her. Also, she doesn't feel like, I agree with you, Dan, she doesn't feel like a massive star yet in the same way like Tiffany Stratton's getting that way, Roxanne Perez is getting that way. There's a couple of others. She's just kind of come out of nowhere, and I'm like, what? Who? For Becky to beat Stratton, but then lose to Lyra. Look, it's a great rub for Lyra. It really is, and it's put her on the map. But like, I'm not convinced yet. I'm sure she's great things in her future, but I think I need a little bit more to take it seriously. That's just me.
Yeah, the big thing for me is like, I'm still not sure who she is. Like, give me something to kind of like understand this is who you are, this is your character, because Tiffany Stratton has nailed her character, and she's gone, I'm that kind of daddy's little rich girl. She's got like even like her moves are kind of like the prettiest moonsault ever. And it's kind of like it's one of those things where you're like cool, and it actually is. It's a beautiful moonsault. And the way she acts backstage is the way she acts in the ring, and even down to her. I think they've changed it a little bit, but her entrance theme suits her.
Yeah.
When I think about Lyra, I'm kind of like that. You started life in NXT UK where you were this sort of, I guess, strange raven character or something like to do with like Irish like folk tales or fairy tales. They kind of carried it on into NXT. They've moved away from it, and I don't know if that was because of the whole Alba Fire thing and Isla Dawn, and maybe that was why they wanted to separate it away. But it's left this kind of void where, cool, you're from Ireland, you're the same place as Becky Lynch, you were in that. But when out Becky's gone, who are you? Like, let us know your character, because to me, it does feel, and this sounds harsh to say, she's coming across as a placeholder, title holder. Like she's just ready for the next person to take it off of her.
Yeah,
That's
the gimmick.
Go on, sorry.
No, sorry, I was going to say her gimmick is you nailed it. Her gimmick is the other Irish girl right now, and that's not enough. Like, and it's a problem. Go on, Dan. You said.
So I was just going to say is if you wanted to take whatever happened with Tiffany Stratton and Becky Lynch, who would you have had Becky drop the title to instead of Lyra Valkyria? Because I can think of a few other people that I would prefer in that position instead. You've got Roxanne Perez.
Davenport there straight away.
Yeah.
You've got Gigi Dolan, I think, is doing great work. You've got people like Lola Vice, who's doing great work. I think Nikita Lyons is still out injured. But again, someone that I think has got their character developed a lot more and wouldn't feel like a placeholder, whereas Lyra Valkyria does.
Yeah. And that's not to say she can't one day get there, but I think she needs 100%. to work on it away from the title and maybe become like, as in like dropping the title can sometimes give you a little bit of breathing room, because you can kind of build that resentment up and really hone your kind of character as to how you respond to losing the title. So I actually think it'd be the best thing for her is when she drops it, is how does it respond? And that will be the way that she can define a character. But right now she's kind of stuck because she's a baby face and not a very strong one at that, because she's not got the kind of hugger character of Bayley, because she's not that kind of way inclined. And is it supposed to be that she's a bit scrappy and that way? But again, it's all very convoluted. So good for her.
Who's she feuded with? Like in a meaningful way, who's she feuded with? Like what stories can we point to and say?
Well, she's just had the Xia Li, wasn't it? Was on there. So she just had the match against Xia Li, but she's not got anything going into Deadline. So she's got to wait for whoever wins Deadline, and presumably Lola Vice will get a shot because she's the breakout champion.
Yeah. Right? Was that a feud though with Xia Li? Because I feel like Xia Li's more going after people on the main roster. Like I guess she's had that.
They had backstage interviews and vignettes where
but
her out and stuff. So,
but it just felt like it didn't feel like a feud to me. It just felt like a champion moving on to the next challenger, a little bit storyline. It didn't feel like I'm not saying it needs to be like a blood feud and go on for multiple pay-per-views, but it didn't feel like a feud to me. It just felt like she's the number one contender.
She needs a blood feud that's not Becky Lynch. She needs something to actually get beef into. Otherwise, she's going to be defined by the fact that she is the other Irish woman who beat Becky Lynch, and Becky Lynch put her over, because that's as far as it's going to go at the moment.
It just because the Xia Li thing just felt to me like Xia Li was the number one contender and wanted to get in the champ's head for a couple of weeks, and then it was over. Like they do that in WWE all the time, and sometimes those things are memorable, sometimes they're not. And on this occasion, I feel like in a year's time we won't even remember that program. And I think Xia Li is great, by the way, absolutely great, and she cracks me up on social media as well. But
she is, but she needs to get rid of this weird like entrance where she has different weapons, because
I like it.
It's so cringy. It's so.
It is. Do you know what? It was good, right? And I can't believe, right? This is just another symptom and casualty of the NXT 2.0. But I was loving that gimmick where they had Boa, Xia Li, and the creepy woman in the chair.
Wendy Chu.
Yeah, that again, like they changed that terrifying second coming of the Undertaker gimmick, and it was scary. It was legitimately scary. They changed that to a girl who wrestles in her PJs. And wants to go to sleep. Like, I have to fast forward Wendy Chu. I can't do it. I'm waiting for that gimmick to die because I can't stomach it.
I haven't seen her in a while. It's definitely died out.
I think like she's a great wrestler. I think she's great at what she does, but I don't want to see a gimmick. So you're a professional fighter who turns up to work in her PJs and is sleepy. Who the hell?
Someone saw the Orange Cassidy match where he gets put to sleep by the guy who rocks him to sleep. That's the only way I can explain that someone's got to that gimmick, because they saw that and went, let's make a character out of that.
The only time WWE have nearly done well mirroring Orange Cassidy was Cool Kyle O'Reilly. Like, that was pretty fun when he was Cool Kyle for a while. But anyway, but yeah, no, like Wendy Chu, like if you're listening, Wendy Chu, no disrespect, but that's bad creative, yo.
Your last creative was great, but I don't understand how night and day, and I don't mean that in any kind of pun.
Or night and night.
As you can see on the screen at the moment, NXT deadline is in 2 weeks, I believe. December 9th.
Next weekend.
Next weekend.
Yep.
We are going to find out on Tuesday who the final is. I believe it's sort of last chance tournament, isn't it? Or last chance match they're having to fill that last spot. But at the moment, because some of these faces might not be well known for people, we've talked a little bit there about Tiffany Stratton, who's front and centre. We've got Blair Davenport on the right-hand side, who I think is fantastic, and is my pick in this match to win. And then to the left of Tiffany, we've got Lash Legend, who's part of Metaphor, which is still a fantastic name for a group. And then we've got on the far left, Kalani Jordan, who was in the breakout tournament as well. So they're definitely giving some different faces a chance in the deadline match. For what's the name of the match again? Dan, remind me. Iron something or other.
Women's Iron Survivor Challenge Last Chance Qualifier.
Bloody hell!
That's the one that happens on Tuesday. So this is the Iron Survivor women's match, and then you've got the Iron Survivor men's match.
Yeah,
and it's very complicated match, but well worth the watch. Grayson Waller won the men's one last year. I'm trying to remember who won the women's. Was it?
No idea off the top of my head.
Was it Roxanne Perez?
Could be.
Could have been.
Could be.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But yeah, some interesting ones. And it's cool again. NXT, we said earlier on, NXT are giving so much screen time to women. They get 2 hours. And I think most weeks at the moment, it's been women filling over half. I would estimate it's about a 60-40 split. And it feels great because they're building some characters. Sam, I know you're not a big fan of the Chase University stuff they've had on, but they are good at developing gimmicks. It'd be interesting to see how much they kind of take through to the main roster now that Vince presence isn't there to kind of stop gimmicks carrying over.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to see, because they are, as you can see, there's a good array of people down there. The couple that I wanted to say, and I don't know if you guys saw the matches during the breakout tournament, and this isn't a great photo for her because she's actually on the receiving end of the hold. I thought Carmen Petrovic was absolutely fantastic in that tournament. She's got a great look, her like skill set. Some of the kicks she did were crazy good. I think, am I right in saying, did she have a match against Lola Vice where it was on the same week there was other women's matches going on, and that was the one that got the highest rating because it was just fantastic. Have you guys seen her before?
Yeah, I've watched her on NXT, but I'm not going to lie, a lot of the new people on NXT at the moment are all kind of blending into one for me.
Right.
If I'm being honest, especially in that chat, like I recognise Lola Vice because of her funky entrance, but all the others are kind of like they've not really grabbed my attention yet.
Yeah, Carmen Petrovic is the one who does similar to Xia Li. She comes out with a big sword, She comes out with like a samurai sword. But I think she's got a martial arts background. But the women in particular on NXT seem to be really adapting well from this kind of new way of recruiting, where they recruit out of college for people who are good at like tumbling or gymnastics or even like basketball athletes, runners, etc. The women seem to be really good at like kind of taking the training on and putting on great matches. And another one who I thought was fantastic is Danny Palmer, who you can see there. And you can see Lola Vice is on the floor, and I think I've got a better picture on the next one. It's really weird when you try and rip some photos off of the WWE.com. They don't seem to have too much of the NXT women, but we'll get there, I'm sure. Is there anyone in NXT that's caught your guys' eyes? I know you mentioned Lola Vice there, Sam. What about you, Danny? Anything that you can think off the top of your head?
I think if I was to sort of pick anyone out immediately, I'd go Cora Jade. I think that she's main roster ready pretty much. She's not the tallest, she's not the biggest muscle-wise, but she's got a well-defined character, I think. She can go in the ring. I think she's one of the more exciting people that I've seen in NXT for a while. And I think that you could use that look and that style quite effectively in NXT itself for a little while. And I think she's a person that probably has one of the best futures based on what I've seen so far. She's got everything down. Like we was talking earlier on about Tiffany Stratton having every aspect of her gimmick down. I think Cora Jade has pretty much got that as well. It might need a little bit more in ring work, but I think that she's not far off being that total package.
Yeah, and to be fair, she might actually need to be in the ring with people who are in that upper echelon to really kind of progress as well. She's not been seen for quite a while on NXT in terms of like having a good kind of spot, and she definitely seems to be working on herself, I guess, while she's been away. Is always one way I'm going to put that. But yeah, Cora Jade probably has nailed down that side of things, but hasn't had a chance to run with the title yet. So there's an argument to say maybe she could do with a bit of a stint, because she's got the character side now. She just needs the credentials. So interesting to have that mix. You can see on the screen, the one that Sam mentioned, is Lola Vice, who has that contract for a title shot. She's currently paired up with Elektra Lopez at the moment. So she's kind of got that sort of buddy or bodyguard. I don't know how you want to kind of say it, but Lola Vice is going down well with the NXT crowd as well over in the Performance Center. Sorry, Sam, you were going to say that.
No, it's nothing major. I was just going to say with Cora Jade, there's unfinished business between her and Roxanne Perez, which I think could be good for Stand and Deliver, potentially, if they were to get back to that point. But now with Lyra Valkyria in the title picture, I don't know how realistic that is, but if I was booking, I'd do something with that, because it doesn't seem like it's quite blown off. That could be Gargano Ciampa levels of good if they lean into it, but
yeah, they've painted those two as sort of those enemies that will fight forever, or you're destined to do it forever. So whether you move both of them up eventually onto the main roster, the one thing I do worry about is they are very small in stature. And I worry like how closely similar they are. So Roxanne Perez is another one who I know she's got a big following, a big cult following. But I think she's another one who kind of needs to define a character a little bit as well, and not just be Booker T's favorite student or anything like that. Yeah. She needs to kind of be herself and kind of get that across, because they seem to have this thing where they'll try and replicate other people who've been and gone through NXT, because they're doing this weird Bailey-like thing that like, oh, I grew up watching the wrestling and now I'm like part of it. And it's kind of like, cool, we've heard that story before. Give us something a little bit new, or give us a twist on it or something. But yeah, she's another one who she had the title and they had that weird, she's injured, so she doesn't have it anymore, and then never got back at it. So you wonder if there is something in that coming down the line. But she features prominently, so good to see that they're kind of putting so much stock in NXT. I'm going to finish this off, by the way, because we're well over an hour already. I'm going to finish this off by asking you: is there anyone that isn't signed by the company at the moment that you would like to see signed by WWE? So it could be someone returning, it could be someone that's never been there before. But if you had one person that you could bring in that would instantly make the main roster better, who would you be picking?
Is this the women's or the men's or both? Or...
Sam, we've been talking about the women's roster.
Oh yeah, I'm obviously getting tired. I'm trying to think. I think for me, someone from NXT UK. I'm trying to think who though, because I feel like it. I think a lot of them have. Oh, what's her name? Zaya Brookside.
Oh, okay, right.
Maybe I think there was a lot there. I thought Toni Storm was great in WWE. I know she's in AEW now. She's the champ again. She's loving life, but I feel like WWE messed up with her so bad, and it could have been she could have been a big star there. But I am loving her timeless gimmick in AEW right now. I think that's absolutely fire. Just so funny. But yeah, I feel like that's a wasted opportunity. Something that we could have had. Could have been a big deal, but we had to just cover her in custard pies, didn't we? But there we are. Yeah.
Any advance on Zaya Brookside or Toni Storm from you, Dan?
The one person I would love to see did have a tryout in December 2022 is Carly Rae. I think that as character-wise, she could be a replacement for the Bailey Hugger style gimmick. Because she's just so overjoyed. She's a little ray of sunshine when she's in the ring. And she knows her character. She knows what she'll do. And I think that's a very WWE style gimmick. And I just think it was completely out of place for an AEW show when they was going for like the real, at the time, not gritty, but real down to earth, real world style of performer. Whereas I think Carly Rae, the smiley Carly Rae character, was just a very NXT WWE character all day long. And it was the right person, right gimmick, wrong promotion for me.
Yeah,
it's a good shout. And there's aspects of that where she was on the main roster where she could kind of be trying to get Bailey to fall back into it. And there's some good storyline.
I thought of another, by the way, Julia from Stardom.
Yes. I actually have it written down here because I was surprised that there's a few names I wrote down, and she's the one that everyone's saying WWE already reached out to, and there's heavy rumors that she's tempted by it, which is cool because I did, in preparation for this, watch a couple of matches. One of them was I think she had a match, fatal 4-way match in Impact, and which featured another one on the list, Sam, which I thought you were going to say, and you've let me down. I thought you might have said a return to WWE for Deonna Purrazzo, who never really got a chance in NXT.
Now, that'd be great, and it was a wasted opportunity. Like, she could have been just fire there, but she's fire in TNA right now, and she's doing just fine over there. So I actually bumped into her in a corridor a few weeks ago. Would you believe? When I was at the TNA show, and I thought, I wonder if she remembers me from interviewing her. But I didn't have the hat on when I interviewed her. I just said, "Have a good show, Deonna," and she went, "Oh, thank you," and that was that. So there you go.
Fair enough. The other names I've got on here is the return of Sasha Banks potentially, which there's so many stories you can put in with that, especially at the moment where it feels like you could almost have Damage Control sans Bailey, and then make the 4 horsewomen go up against them, and kind of Bailey needing the help of her friends eventually. And the other one is a good UK talent, which she was in NXT UK. It'd be nice to see her brought in, which is Millie McKenzie, who I think is actually across Japan at the moment, doing a bit more in Japan. If you haven't had a chance to see Millie McKenzie, either watch some of the old NXT UK stuff, or if you're in the UK, check out your local indie show, because she does have a tendency to pop up on them. And
all over Progress as well. Like, she's been in Progress for years.
She was trained by Pete Dunne, was one of them. Won't name the other trainer because it's not a great situation. But yeah, she was trained with Pete Dunne, so or by Pete Dunne, so a great talent over on the British scene as well.
I was just going to say I was quickly sort of having a look, and I would quite like to see Billy Kay, Peyton Royce, and Chelsea Green as a trio.
Oh yeah, the ace.
Oh my god!
The three Karens would be amazing.
Oh. 3 Karens.
Yeah. On that note, I don't really know if I want the nightmare that would be a Karen promo every week, but yeah,
I love it.
Adam Pearce is nut, by the way, on Raw.
But I'm loving that. I want to speak to your manager thing. I am the manager.
Yes,
cracking. It's so good. A few people have dabbled with that gimmick before, but I think she's really nailing it. She's so slappable. She's such a good heel. It'd be cool if I know we're speaking about the women's division here, but it'd be cool if her husband turned up in WWE again as well. But he doesn't need him. He doesn't need him. He's doing well on his own, and I think that's the point, isn't it? With what he's doing.
Yeah. But yeah, so basically, if you can take anything away from this, is that you can hopefully understand the depth of talent that WWE currently has on the books, and it looks like they're set for a good while yet with the current roster and the future stars that are coming up on NXT. I'll leave the picture of Lola Vice as the final one, just because obviously she has that title opportunity coming up at some point. But before we go, Dan and Sam, feel free to let people know where they can find you, what have you got coming up, give us anything that you want to plug. Yeah, Sam, let's start with you, mate.
Yeah, well, God, we'll be here all day with my stuff. I think at the moment, WrestleSphere is going from strength to strength. We've made a lot of contacts in the British independent scene. Like we've been doing a lot of WWE, AEW, and Impact stuff for the longest time, but now we've got a lot more stuff coming on, which is closer to home. So that's really, really nice, especially in the north of England, which is where we are based as well. It's not all about London. So I'll keep some stuff under my hat with WrestleSphere for now. But just know, if you like our articles, if you like what we do, all three of us have been involved in it in different times. Andy does some work for us. Dan, I know we've roped you in to help us with some technical things in the past. I'm spinning a lot of plates with it, but I'm more than happy to do that, as it's like I know Dom is the owner of SoundSphere, but WrestleSphere was something I kind of harassed him for years to set up, and it has become my baby since we did. So that's great. But also give me a hull, I'll be on in about an hour and 10 minutes covering SmackDown. Daddy's home, and Daddy's got some things to say. Some of them will be regarding CM Punk. So, and again, what I say about Punk tonight might surprise you. Lads, you're welcome to join me on SmackDown tonight. Dan, I know bloody hell when do you sleep? You must be 2 people. I'm starting to think.
Yeah, I've got me, and then I've got my Hullimaniac Dan.
Oh, you've got a Hollywood Dan. Well, Hollywood Dan, nothing gets to Hollywood Dan. He don't need to sleep. He coasts by. He gets that sleep just by being awake. But yeah, guys, you're both welcome to join me if you like. If you do, Dan, I'm sorry I won't be able to make it up to you on Monday with Raw, because obviously I'm on a Deserto shift on Tuesday morning. But one day I will. One day. But yeah, so that's me done. I'll shut
up. From myself, at the minute on our spread shop on Give Me a Hull, you can find it on any of our videos. We have got 15% off and free delivery. Ooh. All the way up until Sunday night. So get anything that you want, Christmas presents for someone, treat yourself, tell your partners. If you want anything, get it ordered as soon as you can, because that 15% off and the free delivery does end Sunday night, midnight.
If you've ever wanted Dan's face on your balls, now's the time to do it. You can buy clothing with Dan's face on it. There you go.
Oh, you can. And the other thing, there's a band called Jobber that makes some awesome wrestling music. Go check out their song called Entrance Theme. If you're a wrestling fan, you will not be disappointed. It is brilliant.
And where can we find you on Mondays, Dan?
Usually sat right here, covering Monday Night Raw. Usually with a pile of snacks at the side of me. I don't normally cover Monday Night Raw. It's Hollywood Dan that normally covers Monday Night Raw.
Oh
now.
yeah.
I've given myself a bit of a break. But come join us. We have a bit of fun. We'll have a few chats about anything that's going on, and there'll probably be a lot of CM Punk chats.
Fair enough. This always happens. Someone's come in really late on. I don't know who they are, but thank you for joining. Where have you been? You need to go back and watch this stream. But thank you for joining us, even if it is right at the end where we're going. But as we said, you can tune in probably about an hour's time to give me a whole yeah. Make sure you go hit that subscribe button so you get the notifications whenever those guys have videos coming out, which is all the time. You can go watch the unboxing that Dan did earlier tonight. You've got plenty of time to watch that before SmackDown starts. So go check that out. The Pro Wrestling Crate unboxing or opening, whatever you want to call it. But yes, go check that out and then go watch Sam and keep him company if we don't in the early hours of the morning. It makes these... Wait, that was in the wrestling.
No.
Oh yes.
Oh my god.
Once you're done, stay on for a minute, and I'll go through it all so you can have a quick glance at what I've got.
You can't even buy that in the shop. That we've discussed that T-shirt before, Andy, haven't we?
We have, yeah. I always liked how he never put it on sale. So
that'd be worth some dough. That.
On that note. Go watch that video so you can go find out how you can get yourself one of them potentially.
Don't show us now, Dan. Don't show us now.
Maybe you can't. Nice little tease there. So yeah, go check that out, and we'll be back again next week, if not before, for a little bit more of a chat about the week's biggest or whatever we decide to talk about. It could be something completely different. But next week will probably be dominated by NXT Deadline. We do like to speak about NXT. Always great to cover what I think is one of the most exciting brands in all of wrestling, not just WWE. So yeah, we'll probably be chatting about NXT Deadline, what we think about our predictions, etc., what to expect ahead of that next Saturday. But I really appreciate you all joining in. I really appreciate the guys being here from Give Me a Hole. Yeah, always an absolute privilege and honor to have them on. So this is going to be interesting. I don't think I've ever done this for 3 people. I've been Andy, he's been Sam, all the way down there, he's been Dan. That's Lona Vice. This is Wrestling Royalty. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.